In the course of prolonged volcanic activity throughout this region over 530 million years ago, copper rose with the lava from the depths of the earth and accumulated in the rocks that were formed. In the hundreds of millions of years since, during which time the landscape was totally transformed, the copper sank into the primeval sea that was here and underwent various metamorphoses. When the Timna Valley, situated on the edge of the Great Arava Rift Valley, took on its present form, the layers of rock containing copper ore were exposed. The colorful copper ore caught the eye of those people who began collecting them in prehistoric times and eventually learned to smelt the ore to produce copper metal and to shape the copper into tools. Since that early time, the name of Timna has been associated with the reddish metal. Over the years, many stories were spread about mysterious mines dating back from biblical times. But it was only when the Arava expedition came to the area in 1959 and began to investigate that the true and thrilling story of Timna was finally revealed to the world.
In our archaeological surveys of Timna, we eventually reached the cliff that commands the site. On the slopes, we found peculiar features that we couldn't explain. Shallow white pits that we called plates. In aerial surveys, many more of them were discovered. Eventually, we counted 8,000 plates. Finding no answer to the puzzle as to their function, we decided that the only way to solve this problem was to conduct systematic excavations in the field.
Beneath each excavated plate, the opening to a mine shaft was found. Some of these shafts were as much as 35 meters deep. Deep down in the rock, the shafts were connected by a network of mining galleries winding their way far and wide for distances of several miles. What they found was a huge system of ancient mines, a subterranean world devoted entirely to one purpose, the mining of copper. While some workers were busy digging out the copper ore from the depths of the earth, others carried it up to the surface. From there, the ore was transported several miles to 12 large copper smelting camps with special furnaces, storerooms, fortified walls, and watchtowers, as well as housing for the thousands of workers and specialized craftsmen who worked here. Who established this great enterprise? The people who lived and worked here drew images of themselves on the rocks. A comparative examination of these figures and of the weapons they used, together with deciphering inscriptions found in Timna, pointed to the answer. The copper mines and smelting camps were Egyptian. They were about 3,300 years old. Why had the Egyptians come as far as Timna in search of copper? During that period, copper was the most important metal. Even when the secret of adding tin to make a stronger bronze was discovered, copper still remained the most important material for metalworking. Egypt at the time, known as the period of the New Kingdom, was at the height of its power. A rich and sophisticated empire supported by a powerful army and ruling over many countries. To support such an empire, ancient Egyptians needed lots of copper. I sent emissaries to the great copper mines in that place, writes Ramesses III. The emissaries came there in ships, others overland on donkeys. They found copper in great abundance there. They transported it to Egypt and laid hundreds of thousands of ingots in a pile. I gave the entire nation permission to witness this wonder.
המשלחות של המצרים.
The Egyptian expeditions arrived by ship at the natural harbor in the Gulf of Eilat, now called the Coral Island.
שם אנחנו...
In our excavations there, we found the remains of the ancient harbor. From there, the Egyptians continued along the coast to Timna by donkey caravans.
The Egyptians who traveled to Timna came upon a rugged and spectacular landscape, very different from what they were used to along the banks of the Nile. However, they found the heat unbearable, especially beside the blazing furnaces. In the stifling darkness of the bowels of the earth, the work was agonizingly difficult. On occasion, they would be treated to delicacies that arrived from home, such as fish from Egypt's lakes. Yet they longed for the sights of home along the Nile's banks. In their religious ceremonies, they appealed to the gods. They turned their faces skyward to the sun god Re, who gives the world light and warmth. They called to the mysterious goddess Hathor. Hathor appears in the guise of a cow and in the guise of a beautiful woman as well. She is the mother who protects the miners, but she is also their lover. In the temple of Hathor at Timna, the priests erected statues of the goddess which they would wash, anoint, and present with gifts from Egypt. Praise be to her who is more precious than gold. Praise be to the Lady of the Heavens. I shall express my devotion to Hathor, cried the worshippers. They made lots of noise to scare away the evil spirit of Hathor by shattering ceramic vessels. Hathor was also called the Lady of the Turquoise, and figurines in her honor were cast in a small foundry in the temple court. Hathor was a daughter of the father of the gods, the sun god Re, and a relative of Osiris, god of the underworld, his wife Isis, and their son Horus, the falcon-headed ruler of Egypt. Jackal-headed Anubis was the god of death and of the mortuary rituals. Bird-headed Thoth was the god of wisdom and the inventor of Egyptian writing. The Egyptian gods could change shape in a flash, assuming the appearance of a human or an animal, or a combination of both. Just as the sun vanishes from view at the end of each day and reappears in the morning, so too the Egyptians believed humans could die in this world and be reborn in the world of the dead. Every self-respecting Egyptian who could afford it embalmed his dear departed ones so they would enter the world of the dead with their bodies intact. After a lavish ceremony, the body was placed in the grave with everything it would need in the afterlife. The fate of those who died in remote, isolated Timna was different. Their mortuary ceremonies were modest, evidently including only a brief prayer and a burial with a few simple objects. But they, too, set out on a journey to the world of the dead, a long journey fraught with danger, at the end of which the verdict of the gods awaited them, eternal life or final extinction. Were the Egyptians here alone? It appears not. Others who belonged to a different people also worked here together with the Egyptians, the Midianites. The Midianites came to Timna from the land of Midian in the neighboring Arabian Peninsula, bringing with them their camels to help carry heavy loads, as well as the experience and knowledge they'd gained in their own gold and copper mines. According to the Bible, the Midianites also played a role in the exodus from Egypt, which took place at about the same time Jethro, the Midianite high priest, sheltered the fugitive Moses in his escape from Egypt, gave him his daughter Tzipporah for a wife, and employed him as a shepherd. When Moses led the Israelites from slavery to freedom, Jethro advised him how to organize the tribes and taught him the rudiments of justice. In the middle of the 12th century BCE, when the Egyptians left Timna and withdrew from the region, the Midianites took over the mines. The temple of Hathor also passed into their hands, and they turned it into a Midianite shrine, resembling the tabernacle erected by the Israelites in the Sinai desert. The Midianites removed the statues of Hathor and erased her visages from the columns of the temple.
Excavating in the Holy of Holies of the Midianite shrine, we found a curious wire object. When cleaned, it turned out to be a very beautiful copper serpent with a gilded head. This obviously reminds us of the story in the book of Numbers about the Nehushtan, the copper serpent that God told Moses to make when the Israelites sinned and were punished with an onslaught of serpents. Any man that looked onto the Nehushtan, he lived.
The Midianites, who operated the mines together with the Egyptians for 150 years, never actually settled in Timnah, but left the site not long after the Egyptians. In the many years since, repeated attempts were made to mine copper in Timnah. The latest was in 1959, when a plant was built at the site to supply copper to Israeli industry. In that same year, the Arava expedition arrived in Timnah and finally laid bare its secrets, closing a circle that began 3,300 years ago, at the center of which still stands the true hero of this story, copper.